Sweat it out. Definition: to anxiously see a situation through to the end. Example number 1. We went to see my son's game and we were sweating it out until the end. Meaning, we were anxiously waiting to see who won the game. Example number 2. I don't like the assignment I'm doing at work, but I just have to sweat it out. Meaning, I just have to deal with it until it's over. Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
The job interview was tough. Now we just have to sweat it out until they announce who got the job.
I know, waiting is the hardest part. How are you handling the stress?
I'm just trying to keep busy and not think about it too much.
That's a good approach. Hopefully, it all turns out well, and we don't have to sweat it out too long.
Step in. Definition: to get involved. Example number 1. When my kids were arguing, I had to step in. Meaning, I had to get involved and stop them from arguing. Example number 2. When the two teams got into a fight after the game, the security guards had to step in. Meaning, the security guards had to get involved and break up the fight. Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
The discussion in the meeting was getting heated. Did anyone step in?
Yes, the manager had to step in and calm everyone down.
That was necessary. It's good he stepped in before it got out of hand.
Absolutely. Sometimes you just need someone to step in and take control.
Team up. Definition: to join with another to do something. Example number 1. I teamed up with my coworker and we expressed our complaints to our boss. Meaning, we joined together and voiced our complaints to our boss. Example number 2. The kids in the middle school teamed up with the kids from the high school to raise money for a new playground. Meaning, the kids from the middle school and the high school joined together to raise money for a new playground. Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
I heard we need to create a new marketing campaign by next month. Want to team up?
That sounds like a great idea. We can combine our skills effectively.
Exactly. I think our different strengths will really complement each other.
Agreed. Let's team up and start brainstorming some ideas tomorrow.
Stir up. Definition: to purposely cause trouble or excitement. Example number 1. Kevin always stirs things up when he goes somewhere. Meaning, he always causes trouble when he goes somewhere. Example number 2. If you come to the meeting with me, please don't stir things up. Meaning, if you come to the meeting with me, please don't purposely create any trouble. Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
Why did Alex start arguing about the new policy during the meeting? It wasn't the right time.
He likes to stir up controversy. I think he enjoys the attention it brings.
That's not helpful. It only creates unnecessary tension.
I agree. Next time, I'll speak to him beforehand to avoid him stirring things up again.
Talk out of. Definition: to convince someone not to do something. Example number 1. A depressed man was about to jump off the bridge, but the police were there trying to talk him out of it. Meaning, The police were trying to convince him not to do it. Example number 2. I decided I'm definitely quitting my job, so don't try to talk me out of it. Meaning, I decided I'm quitting my job, so don't try to convince me not to do it.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
I'm thinking about quitting my job tomorrow. I just can't take it anymore.
Have you thought this through? Maybe I can talk you out of it until you find a new one.
You think I should wait?
Yes, let's look at your options first. It's better not to make such a big decision in haste.
Stand out. Definition. To be easily noticed in a crowd or group by looking or sounding different. Example number 1. Jenny stood out in the crowd in her bright orange dress. Meaning, she was easily noticed in the crowd since she was wearing a bright orange dress. Example number 2. If you want your presentation to stand out, use bold colors. Meaning, if you want your presentation to be easily noticed, use bold colors.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
Did you see the presentations today? Jenna's really stood out.
Yes, her design was so innovative. It caught everyone's attention.
Exactly, she has a knack for creating visuals that stand out from the rest.
It's a great skill to have, especially in our field. Standing out can make a big difference.
Tip off. Definition. To give someone secret information. Example number 1. Joe tipped off the police that his neighbor was selling drugs. Meaning, Joe told the police that his neighbor was selling drugs. Example number 2. Someone tipped off our boss that we left work early. Meaning, someone told our boss that we secretly left the office early.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
How did you know the police were going to raid the area?
Someone tipped me off a few hours before it happened.
That was lucky. It must have helped you avoid trouble.
Definitely. Without that tip-off, I would have been caught up in the chaos.
Talk into. Definition. To convince someone to do something. Example number 1. Matt tried to talk me into driving him to the airport, but I said no. Meaning, he tried to convince me to drive him to the airport, but I didn't. Example number 2. Mary always tries to talk me into doing something that I don't want to do. Meaning, she always tries to convince me to do something that I don't want to do.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
I heard you're going on the hiking trip this weekend. Weren't you hesitant at first?
Yes, I was a bit scared of the challenge. But Sam talked me into it.
That sounds like Sam. How did he manage to convince you?
He showed me all the beautiful places we'd visit, and I couldn't resist. He really talked me into it.
Turn into. Definition. To become someone different than before. Example number 1. Adam was a troubled teenager, but it was nice to see that he turned into a responsible young man. Meaning, it was nice to see that he became a responsible young man. Example number 2. Whenever Keith drinks, he turns into a nasty person. Meaning, whenever Keith drinks, he starts behaving like a totally different person.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
Have you noticed how much John has changed since he started his new job?
Yes, he's really turned into a confident person. It's like he's a new man.
It's amazing. He used to be so shy and reserved.
I know. That job has really helped him turn into the person he always wanted to be.
Stare down. Definition. To focus your gaze on someone to make them feel uncomfortable. Example number 1. The teacher stared down the student when she thought he was cheating on the test. Meaning, she focused her gaze on him to make him feel uncomfortable so he'd stop cheating on the test. Example number 2. Whenever I enter the lobby, the security guard stares me down. Meaning, whenever I enter the lobby, the security guard stares at me to make me feel uncomfortable and intimidated.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
During the debate, did you see how Mark stared down his opponent?
Yes, it seemed like he was trying to intimidate him.
It worked. His opponent looked really uncomfortable.
That's a tough tactic. Staring someone down can really throw them off their game.
Turn up. Definition. To appear or show up unexpectedly. Example number 1. I lost my wallet and I hope it turns up soon. Meaning, I lost my wallet and I hope it appears soon. Example number 2. Sarah can't find her passport and she hopes it'll turn up soon. Meaning, she hopes that it will show up soon.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
Guess who turned up at the reunion last night?
Who was it?
Mike. We hadn't seen him since graduation.
Wow, that's a surprise. He just turned up out of nowhere.
Yes, no one expected him. It was great to see him again.
Weigh on. Definition. To burden or pressure. Example number 1. All of the problems in my life are weighing on my mind. Meaning, all of my problems are a real burden to me. Example number 2. The crime the thief committed weighed on his mind a lot, and he ended up confessing. Meaning, the thief was so burdened by his crime that he couldn't take the pressure anymore, and he confessed to the police.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
You've seemed worried lately. What's going on?
It's just the deadlines at work. They're really weighing on me.
That sounds tough. Is there anything I can do to help?
Thanks for offering. Just talking about it helps lift some of the weight.
Walk out on. Definition. To leave a spouse or someone suddenly. Example number 1. I can't believe Martin walked out on Jenny after their marriage of 19 years. Meaning, I can't believe he left her suddenly after such a long marriage. Example number 2. I told my husband if he treated me disrespectfully one more time, I'd walk out on him. Meaning, I told him if he disrespected me one more time, I'd leave him very suddenly.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
Did you hear about what happened with Lisa and her husband?
No, what happened?
Her husband walked out on her last week without any warning.
That's terrible. She must be really upset.
Work on. Definition. To try to improve or make something better. Example number 1. I'm working on getting in shape, but it's difficult to keep up with my diet and exercise program. Meaning, I'm trying to improve my body and get fit, but it's very difficult for me. Example number 2. If you don't work on your attitude, I think your boss will fire you. Meaning, if you don't improve your negative attitude, I think you'll get fired.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
I've noticed you've been staying late at the office. What are you working on?
I'm working on my presentation skills. I have a big conference coming up and I want to do well.
That sounds like a great thing to work on. How's it going?
It's challenging, but I'm getting better each time I practice. I'm hoping all this work pays off.
Work out. Definition. To succeed or reach a happy conclusion over time. Example number 1. I know you had an argument with Bill, but don't worry, things will work out. Meaning, I know you and Bill argued, but don't worry, you'll make up and reach a happy conclusion. Example number 2. If you lose your job, don't worry, things will work out. Meaning, don't worry if you lose your job. In time, you'll succeed and find a better job.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
Were you worried about moving to the new city for your job?
Yes, I was nervous at first, but everything worked out better than I expected.
That's great to hear. It must be a relief that things worked out.
Definitely. I've made some new friends and really enjoy my job now.
Wear down. Definition. To pressure someone to give in. Example number 1. The stress of having 2 jobs and taking care of my family is wearing me down. Meaning, the stress of 2 jobs and taking care of my family is putting so much pressure on me, and I don't think I can do all that anymore. Example number 2. Ralph's boss is really wearing him down. Meaning, his boss is putting a lot of pressure on him, and I think he's going to give in and quit his job.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
Did you finally agree to let Tom go on the field trip?
Yes, he kept asking every day, and he finally wore me down. I had to say yes.
He knows how to get what he wants, doesn't he?
Certainly. He knew that if he kept at it, he could wear me down eventually.
Write off. Definition. To recognize that something is a failure or has no value. Or to cancel a debt. Example number 1. The car was damaged so badly in the accident that they had to write it off. Meaning, they recognized it as no longer having any value. Example number 2. When I caught my friend lying to me, I wrote her off. Meaning, I no longer had a friendship with her as it had no value to me after I caught her lying.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
Did the company finally decide what to do with the old equipment?
Yes, they decided to write it off as it's too outdated to repair or sell.
That makes sense. It's not worth investing more money into it.
Exactly. Sometimes it's better to write off such losses and move forward with newer technology.
Warm up. Definition: to begin to feel comfortable with someone or something. Example number 1. My son didn't like my friend at first, but I think he's warming up to her. Meaning, he didn't like her when he first met her, but he's beginning to like her and feel comfortable with her. Example number 2. At first, the children were afraid of their new teacher, but now they're warming up to her. Meaning, they were afraid of their new teacher at first, but now they're starting to feel comfortable with her.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
How are you getting along with your new teammates?
At first, it was a bit awkward, but I'm starting to warm up to them.
That's good to hear. It can take some time to feel comfortable.
Yes, the more we work together, the more I warm up. They're really great people.
Use up. Definition: to exhaust or consume completely. Example number 1. I used up all of my sick days. Meaning, all of my sick days have been exhausted and I have none left. Example number 2. If you use up all the milk, please replace it. Meaning, if you consume all the milk, please get more so I can drink it when I want to.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
Do we need to buy more printer ink?
Yes, we've used up the last cartridge. There's none left.
Okay, I'll add it to the shopping list. We can't afford to run out again.
Thanks. Make sure to get a couple this time so we don't use up all our stock too quickly.
Wise up. Definition: to have a wider or deeper understanding of something, or to be able to act more intelligently in the future. Example number 1. I told Nancy that if she doesn't wise up and leave her jobless boyfriend, she's going to be unhappy. Meaning, I told her if she doesn't have a better understanding of the man she's living with, she'll end up unhappy. Example number 2. Mark finally wised up and stopped lending his friends money. Meaning, Mark finally got smarter and stopped lending money to people.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
I can't believe I fell for that scam email. I should have known better.
It happens, but it's important to wise up to these things to avoid them in the future.
You're right. I'm going to educate myself more on how to spot scams.
That's a good idea. The more you know, the easier it is to wise up and stay safe.
Zero in on. Definition: to focus on a particular spot. Example number 1. The cops zeroed in on the criminal's pattern and figured out where he lived. Meaning, the police focused their search on a certain area and figured out where the criminal lived. Example number 2. If you zero in on the problem, you'll be able to fix it. Meaning, if you focus on the problem, you'll be able to correct it.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
We need to figure out why our sales dropped this quarter.
Let's zero in on the sales data for our online store. That's where we saw the biggest change.
Good idea. Analyzing that data closely could help us understand what happened.
Exactly. Once we zero in on the problem, we can start making improvements.
Well up. Definition: to gradually or steadily flow upwards or outwards, so as to begin to fill or overflow something. Example number 1. Barbara's eyes started to well up with tears as she watched the sad movie. Meaning, her eyes started to fill up with tears as she watched the sad movie. Example number 2. The water started to well up in the sink. Meaning, the water started to flow upward in the sink and was about to start overflowing.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
Did you see Lisa during the farewell speech?
Yes, I noticed tears starting to well up in her eyes.
It must have been hard for her to say goodbye.
Definitely. It's tough when feelings just well up like that during emotional moments.
Wrap up. Definition. To bring to a conclusion. Example number 1. We're going to wrap up the meeting at 2 o'clock. Meaning, we're going to finish the meeting at 2 o'clock. Example number 2. Please don't wrap up the seminar until the last person's questions are answered. Meaning, don't end the seminar until everyone's questions are answered.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
We've covered a lot in this meeting. Should we start to wrap it up?
Yes, let's summarize the key points and assign tasks before we wrap up.
Good idea. I'll note the decisions we've made and the next steps.
Perfect. Once that's done, we can officially wrap up and send out the minutes.
Walk off. Definition. To leave someone, often in a rude or angry manner. Example number 1. The angry actor walked off the stage and quit the play. Meaning, the actor left the stage angrily and quit the play. Example number 2. If you walk off while our boss is speaking, he'll probably fire you. Meaning, if you leave angrily during our boss's speech, he'll probably fire you.
Let's look at an example of an everyday conversation.
Did you see how Derek reacted to the feedback in the meeting?
Yes, he seemed really upset and just walked off.
It was quite sudden. Do you think we should go talk to him?
Maybe give him a few minutes to cool down. It's not good to follow right after someone walks off in anger.
To anxiously see a situation through to the end. Let it out. To get involved. Step in. To join with another to do something. Team up. To purposely cause trouble or excitement. Stir up. To convince someone not to do something. Talk out of. To be easily noticed in a crowd or group by looking or sounding different. Stand out. To give someone secret information. Tip off. To convince someone to do something. Talk into. To become someone different than before. Turn into. To focus your gaze on someone to make them feel uncomfortable. Stare down. To appear or show up unexpectedly. Turn up. To burden or pressure. Weigh on. To leave a spouse or someone suddenly. Walk out on. To try to improve or make something better. Work on. To succeed or reach a happy conclusion over time. Work out. To pressure someone to give in. Wear down. To recognize that something is a failure or has no value. Or to cancel a debt. Write off. To begin to feel comfortable with someone or something. Warm up. To exhaust or consume completely. Use up. To have a wider or deeper understanding of something. Or to be able to act more intelligently in the future. Wise up. To focus on a particular spot. Zero in on. To gradually or steadily flow upwards or outwards, so as to begin to fill or overflow something. Well up. To bring to a conclusion. Wrap up. To leave someone, often in a rude or angry manner. Walk off.
Did you find our exploration of English idioms insightful? Kindly like, subscribe, and activate notifications for more enlightening content. Thank you for watching.